Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, Adarsh, you're audible.
Okay, okay. So yeah, so good afternoon. Welcome to the session, everyone. So this is kind of a different session that we all have. It's like unlike the other session that we have, right? So generally in the Friday session, what we do is we go with some practical aspects and try to come up with a question statement that we will solve or that we solve along with the instructors, right? So we call it solve with instructor session. But in this session, what we have done is we have created this session to clear your doubts regarding project, right? So based on your queries in live sessions, in the previous live sessions and in the discourse, we found it, it will be feasible to clear your doubts regarding project where you can come in, unmute yourself and ask your personalized doubt regarding the project and anything that is not clear in the question statement. All right. So we also will be also having the faculty for this course. We'll have Tej sir today, and he'll be taking care of all the issues and your queries regarding the project statement. And I guess you'll have a good experience talking to sir. And I hope all your doubts get cleared by end of this session. So, sir, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Good afternoon, sir, and welcome to this session.
Good afternoon, Adarsh. Welcome, everyone.
So I would request everyone to just, if possible, you can unmute yourself. And for any reason, if you cannot unmute yourself, you can type your queries in the chat and we'll try to address it. So the agenda would be we will go through the question statement pages by pages and try to, give an idea of, give a verbal idea of this project statement. Okay, so I'll be sharing my screen and probably sir will take after it, right, sir?
Yes, go ahead and open the slideshow. I will take folks through the slideshow and then we'll go through question answers if any.
Okay, all right, sir. Okay, so is the screen visible, sir?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, like you would know, already know, everyone is expected to do one project at the end of the term to complete the course. Now, the course project we are going to call this for you folks, it will be a viva project. But as of now, it's kind of frozen. If anything, any updates, any clarification, we are going to update this document. So you can keep an eye on this document. Continue. Next slide. Okay. So we expect some of the things that you have learned during the course to use in this. So they are compulsory ones. The ones which are compulsory are, use the Flask for application code, use Jinja 2 for templating, and Bootstrap for, HTML styling or structuring and all of that. Use the SQLite for a local database, and all the demos should be able to be done on, Replit or locally, um, you know, with these. And so, when you have a final Viva, you should be able to demo the application either using the Replit or local. You don't need any new setup or anything. It should be able to run, independently. That's what is expected from all the folks. Since you already learned all of this, we would assume that you would use all of this. Continue. Okay. Now, what is a quantified self app? uh, I'll just give you a generic example, and since assume like now I'm talking like a business person giving you requirements to develop an application for me. Quantified self app is an application that anyone can use to track their habits, activities, and other life parameters, so that you can measure yourself against some values. For example, could be how many kilometers do I run every day, So every day you go to this application and log how many kilometers have you been running. So one day I will log in the morning 5 kilometers, in the evening 3 kilometers. Next day I'll log 15 kilometers, like that. So it's just a logging application, right? It keeps track of your life on certain parameters. Now user can have one or more parameters, like run as uh, running as one parameters, number of uh, number of, for example, squats I did today as another parameter to measure, or number of hours that I studied today could be another for a student, for example. So they can have multiple parameters. Now each tracker will have like an ID, like a primary key, a name, a description, a tracker type, and settings. And user can log one or more into one or more tracker at any point of time, and each log that's specific against any tracker will have a timestamp for which tracker you're logging, value, and a note if they wants to leave a note. For example, I want to leave, for a running log in the morning, you can add a log in the morning saying, then you will have a timestamp of the morning, tracker will be running, value would be, let's say, 5 kilometers, and there will be some notes. System will track the progress over time and show the graphs, etc., etc. For example, if you have been running over a month, then you can show a graph of these values over a month. Also, you can have a graphing part of it. Now you can generate the graph um, using a standard library like a GraphJS, or even Google Charts or something like that. Now there are some terminologies that I've written on the right side. Um, um, so you can use them too, actually. When you're building an app, you can, all of you use the same terminology so that it becomes easy to understand. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, so here are some reference materials. Adarsh, I think these slides were shared before, no?
Yes, sir. These slides were shared.
Correct.
Yeah, and we have
So,
also given a pointer in the discourse to some of these applications, so for the students to go through.
correct. So some of the example applications are here. You could actually look at Nomi, which is a web application. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, sure,
Can
sir.
I share?
Yes.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. It is visible.
Okay. Can you see this Nomi app site?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So let's say you are. So I'm going through demo one of the applications, so you kind of get an idea what it looks like. Just going to say all these settings are not important. Okay, so these are the trackers that I was talking to you. Here they have pre-built some of the trackers, but you can have your own tracker. Let's say then. So these are the trackers that I was talking about. If you have a screen which is a list of trackers, this is a tracker, this is a tracker, this is a tracker of mood, this is a tracker of sleep. Now you can log values into that tracker. Let's say I want to measure how much is my mood now. You can click on that. You can, in your case, you don't have to do like so much fanciful UI if you don't want to do, but you could use a bootstrap widget to do some sliders, or you could make them enter the value directly 7 using a text box, right? And I save. So there is a value logged, right? You can see in the history, there's a value logged against a tracker called mood. Timestamp is 12, the value is 7, right? So you can see that. And similarly, if you want to log sleep, sleep is usually track like how long you've been sleeping, right? So you can like say 3 hours and save. So you can add another custom tracker, let's say create tracker. And like I said, we could, I mean, they have an emoji. We don't need to put an emoji as like an example, but I can say running, like I said. And tracker type could be, let's say just a number input, right? And it won't be count. You don't have to do all of this complicated one. We're going to make simple things for you. In this case, you have to choose, all the measured by unit and all. We are going to make it much more simpler. You don't need to have any unit or anything. So then you are running is a tracker. This is creation of the tracker, right? We are doing a CRUD. When we created a tracker, now we are adding a value to the tracker. Today I ran 89, not 89 kilometers, let's say 8 kilometers, and saved. So here you can see the tracker type is running. Timestamp is 200 to 2:14 p.m. and how many kilometers I ran is 8. I mean, in our case, there won't be km or anything. It will be just showing 8, right? So that's the two parts. One is actually creating the tracker part, and then adding to the log part. Now you can do any CRUD operations on this. You can remove it or edit it, right? We don't have any of the stats and streaks. Let's say you can edit the tracker and remove the tracker. You can do that. And similarly, you with respect to log for against each tracker, you can do some edit and delete, that kind of stuff, right? So this is a simplest stuff, and that's what we expect you to do, like a simpler thing. UI could be as simple and or as fanciful as you have time, and you can invest your time in doing that. It doesn't have to be super fanciful, but some of the widgets are actually supported by Bootstrap, and you can use them. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. Can you bring back the slides?
Yes, sir. Just kidding. Has it come up, sir?
Yeah. So so Nami is an example app. You can check out. It's an open source as well. It uses completely different technologies. You don't need to copy it directly. You shouldn't copy it actually directly. And you could look at the how the flows are, how the structures are, and you could use a similar flow. Anyway, we'll give you some flow. Then we have other three more applications. You can go check them out and see how they interact. You can use them for inspiration and flow. So basically, there are two factors. One is a tracker, and one is a logging against a tracker. So those are the two main entities that you will be using. Okay, continue. Okay, so here I have given examples similar to I showed in the screen. I've actually written down some of the examples here so that it becomes easy for you. For example, if there is a tracker called temperature, like say I'm going through COVID now, I want to record temperature every half an hour so that when I go to doctor, I can show him the list of temperature. So I create a tracker called temperature, name it temperature, give some description, and tracker type is numerical. If the track, so we have added some of the tracker types. Can you go back 2 slides? Yeah, so these are the example tracker types that we're given. One is numerical, one is time duration, one is boolean. Boolean is I did something today or did not do, something like that. And numerical is a number. Multiple choices, you can choose one of them. And time duration is like I slept 8 hours today, so that kind of tracker. Okay, go forward by 2. Yeah. Okay, so here it's a numerical. So you can give a drop down, or you can give an input text box on which you can validate the number, right? You can't enter the text because the tracker type is numerical. Now, when you actually log an event against that tracker, you will be taking a full timestamp that along with the date, time, etc., because you need both. Then you have it's mapped to this tracker one. Value is 98.3, and I can leave a note. For example, I was feeling okay. It's like an input box, right? You can enter whatever things that you want to enter as part of the thing. Similarly, you can at some other time you will enter, I have some fever, things like that. Yeah, go to the next slide. I have another example like running. It's the same one that I showed in the demo. So I think we can skip this. So mood tracker is also somewhat similar, but here what I've done is I've made it as a multiple choice. And in the settings table, I would have had what are the choices that are possible. He only has to enter it, the user, and I'm creating a, my mood tracker. I choose multiple choices, the thing, then I enter, okay, out of these 5, I can choose any one. For example, actually 6, angry, sad, happy, calm, okay, and meh. And whenever I go back, I can choose one of them, and that becomes a drop. It becomes a drop down when I'm logging with these values, and hence I can enter one of them, right? Okay, you can. Okay, so the core functionality is a functionality that everyone must do and will be actually graded, is to have a user login, like a username and password, and a dashboard and trend line. Will take you the screen. Dashboard is where you see all the trackers that you're going to do, and some small graphs that you could do derive out of it, numerical or something. This I've put so that you can experiment with some of the trend lines. Then there's tracker management, which is the CRUD related events to tracker, and tracker log events, which is CRUD related to log events. When I say CRUD, I mean like create, update, delete, and read of the trackers. Similarly, the thing, all 4 for the tracker log events too. Yeah. Next slide. So user login, at least give a username so that you can welcome him, welcome Tejish or welcome Adarsh, something like that. Go ahead and add password and do that authentication if you want to. If not, it's still fine. You can use the login framework that we have discussed, or you can just use the thing. So just to make it simpler for you, you could just use a username. You don't need to go for password if you don't want to. But I would suggest, try the login framework that we have used so that you can use it. Yeah. And suitable model for user, use username, name, email ID or something like that. Yeah. Similarly, dashboard will list all of the trackers. You saw that, a similar page. It can be just a listing like a table, or it can be just blocked one next to each other. It's up to your creativity how you want to do it. You can do a list of trackers. Uh, on each tracker, you can tell when was the last time it was reviewed, or when was the last time it was accessed. It's an interesting factor to show to them. And ability to ability to go logging view for any tracker, in the sense you can click and add any new logger. Ability to create or edit tracker, like we said, CRUD, and ability to go any specific tracker details. Uh, Next slide. I think this has wireframes also, right, Adarsh?
Yes, sir. So the
Okay,
wireframes.
so we'll show the wireframe so it will be a little more clear. But since you have seen the demo, it kind of somewhat similar to that. You can identify the relative functionality with respect to demo. Dashboard wish list of tag with list of trackers. This we have done. Next slide. Okay, so the tracker management will be like create a new tracker. I mean, just make sure that you can handle any language. For example, if I want to write in Tamil, Hindi, Telugu or Kannada, I should be able to write. By default, this should be possible unless you mishandle it. Then edit a tracker, as in if you want to rename the tracker or give a different description, you should be able to do. View a tracker. When you view a tracker, it shows all the tracker details, logs related to the tracker, and maybe some stats and trend lines related to tracker. And remove a tracker. When you remove a tracker, it also removes all the logs related to that tracker. So these are the functionalities which are core to the tracker management. Basically CRUD, right? All the simpler things. Go to the next slide. Logging is what I showed the demo. It's the same thing. Click on a tracker, then log the values. In logging, actually based on the type of the tracker, it should show the different options. If it's numerical, it can show a text box where it takes numerical values only. If it's multiple choice, then it presents the option. If it's a time duration, it can give the ability to select like time duration, like 30 minutes, 1 hour. You can give 3 separate drop downs, one showing 1 to 24 or things like that. It's up to your creativity, but basically add some validation so that it can be validated. Now, and the second one is the timestamp at that time when is logging needs to be picked up automatically and should be stored. So edit a log, you can go back and edit the previous log. You can change the value, timestamp, or a note associated with it. Or you can remove specific log. Yeah. Again, it's all CRUD. Right. Okay, I'm just going to take you through the example wireframe. So much more simpler structure than the demo we saw of an open source project. The NOMI you saw is an open source project. Uh, and now actually I'm going to show you the wireframe, which are basics. So you could base your application on these wireframe. Next slide, please. Can we see the wireframes first?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so this is an example simpler application. So the login screen, like I said, you can have a login and username and password. We don't need a registration screen. We are not, I mean, if you want to add, you can go ahead and add, but you can pre-fill some of the user details. Then the next screen will be the dashboard screen, right? Like it'll say hello Fatima because I'm the user Fatima. And there's a logout button on the top. And there are 3 trackers that we have created, like running, temperature, and meditation. There is a when was the last time an event was tracked around against this specific one? Like yesterday I tracked running, today I tracked temperature. So it will be the last value in the tracker log event, right? That table. So you'll take the last value, get its timestamp, and show this value. You don't need to show 3 months ago like that. You can show the timestamp if it becomes easy. Then there are actions is a drop down. You can do certain edit or delete the specific tracker using that actions drop down. You can it's a drop down where you can edit, or if you want to make it simpler, you can add a button here directly saying edit and delete, right? And then the plus is actually to add a event, like a log an event against this. Like for example, I've run now, I've come back home. I want to log an event against running. I'll click this plus. Or if I want to add a new tracker, I'll click on the big add button at the bottom. So this is like the dashboard screen. Yeah. So running tracker, we have shown some example here. This could be a little more complex for you, but the bottom part is easy. Bottom part is just a list of logs. It kind of lists all the events that you are logged until now. And then the actions, again, delete and edit. And it shows like when did you run, what is the value. We don't have any units associated, so it will just show the value and any notes associated with it. And then you can edit or delete. Now on the top, for for the value, you can map it against the timestamp, and this is only possible for make a good numerical things, not not for the multiple options. So you can ignore this graph for the multiple options. You can use for the numerical. Now I've given one trend line. You can use your imagination here and do. Even on the right side drop down, if it's for the timestamp, for example, if you're logging for a year, you can't show for a year because it becomes too large. Then you can just graph certain amount of time itself. If you can add that filter, you can add. If you don't want to add that filter, you can just graph everything you have and use your creativity. Use Google Charts like an embedder, which is very simple. You can do some research there, like spend like a half an hour and use the Google Graphs thing and show it as well, or you can use any other library for that. Yeah. And you can just plot the timestamp on the y-axis and the value on the x-axis. This is one single tracker. So this will happen when you click on one of the trackers in the top page. Go up a little bit, Adarsh. Up. Here, this link to the tracker details. When you click on running, it can be a link that will lead to running tracker. Yeah, go down. So when you want to log a specific event like that plus button, I've made the form very simple here. It opens up a new form. It has when, value, and notes. When is automate. You cannot pre-fill with the current date time, or you can give a calendar widget where you can select timestamp. You can again Bootstrap supports it. You can try it out. Value is you can add based on the type of the tracker, whether it's um, simple tracker like numerical tracker or timer. Based on that, you can give the value drop down or a input box. Then notes is like a text area where they can enter some text and click on log it. That's it. It logs against running because you already know it is for the running. Now adding a tracker like a new tracker is straightforward. Similarly, like give a name, give a description, choose a tracker type. We have multiple choice, numerical, and things. If there are settings, like for example, for multiple choice, there is a setting. You have to give like different values. For example, I choose mood, and description is like I am tracking my mood. Or tracker options is multiple choice. Tracker type is multiple choice, and setting will be comma separated values of happy, sad, things like that. So you can show in the drop down in the log event. Yeah. So these are the four. It's a simple form again. Go down.
Sir, I think that is it.
Yeah, so that's it. Actually, it's a simple four or five screens actually. Now we can go back to slides. So this will be linked in this slide, so you can look at them, or it will be shared on the discourse, the wireframe. Yeah. So recommended and ungraded are like APIs for all the both. There are two types of models, right? Tracker and tracker log event. So like CRUD APIs for that, and any other general purpose API that you want to add. This is uh, some might have it and some may not have it, but it depends on the thing. And validations. If it's a numerical, make sure that it's numerical. If it is time, make sure it's time. All of those are validations, and it has to be done both in the front end and back end. Yeah. Continue. Optional are like styling and aesthetics. We are not like completely focused on styling and thing. That's why I showed you the wireframe. It can be as simple as that, or it can go as fancy as you want to do, right? Like you want to uh, design it like a widgetized, or you want to design it with different style sheet, colors, fonts, and things like that. You can go ahead and do it. Another option will proper login system. We could just go with the username because we want to spell out the user's name saying hi Fatima, or you can go for complete authentication like you are learned. Then export or import logs. This is again, you can give an option for user to download the whole thing as a CSV, so they can do some plotting, charting if they want to do in their own Excel, or calc is LibreCalc, which is an open office thing. So that's also an optional. It's not required, but it's an optional thing. Continue. So evaluation will include code needs to be submitted. Of course, you'll have to submit the whole code zipped. I think the format and the structure will be shared by the team, how you're going to submit it. It'll be like where you will submit, etc. will be shared by others. But we need a 2-pager report. Why 2-page? Because we want it to be short. It's not a huge project. It's a small project, and it's always difficult to write a smaller description, right? If I want to write an essay, it's much easier. You can write like an essay of 10 pages, but we want to have like a very small description of like what you're planning to do, what are the models you're trying to use. You can add some diagram of the model if you want to, and then like some how you have structured it, etc., etc. That's a report. Then all the code, and then we need a 2 or 3 minute video of giving the demo of the application, or and explaining how you approach the problem, what you have done. Make sure that it's less than 3 minutes, and not very long, because Viva folks or I or anyone can't watch really longer videos because we have lots of students. So it has to be crisp, clean. What you could do is you could just record the screen, start with the demo in the application, then you can talk in the background explaining the stuff that you're done and how you're done, and give also include also like a minute of demo, like I showed you how the OpenArmy app. You can also show a demo of your app like quickly. There will be a video. There will be a Viva that will be done for the project and for things outside the project, as part of which are as part of the code too. As part of Viva, you will be asked to do a demo live. Uh, Here, it's not video. You were asked to do like a live demo of the application, either on Replit or in you can screenshot and run it locally, preferably Replit, because it's easier to run all of that. You don't need to make any changes, and you can attend the exam from any of the computer. You don't need to depend on that specific computer. So give a demo to them. Then they might ask some questions related to demo, and they might also ask other questions relevant to the course. So this Viva is also part of your examination. Right. Next slide. So like I said, this is a live document. We can update more details as we get, like, I don't think there will be many more details, because I've already included the wireframe and some examples. So there may not be many, but if there is anything important, we'll update this slides. So, maybe once in a while, keep looking at it. This is already done. So this, you can remove this line. Others anyway, we have already frozen the problem statement. The project
So
has to
this
be
is
submitted.
so this is more of an operational. We'll be taking care of this.
Correct. The project has to be submitted as a single file, which include code, PDF, video. Right. I think again the detailed instructions will be shared by others, how to submit what all, how to zip it up, etc., etc. And then the submission date is 18th March. This is a hard deadline. No extension will be possible. Right. That's why we release the problem statement quite early. Yeah. Okay, next slide if you have any.
Yes, sir. So that is it. I guess that is the last slide.
Correct. I think that's the last. That's it actually in terms of the project. So it's basically like, probably like, if you count the number of the screens, it's going to be hardly five HTML pages. A page user logs in, a dashboard page, CRUD for the tracker, and CRUD for the tracker log. So that's it. And then probably 3 tables, right? One for the tracker, one for the tracker log, and maybe a user table. So it's quite straightforward in that way, and shouldn't lead to any confusion. But of course, all of us will be there on Discourse. So if you have any questions, you can ask. Right now, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand. Others will pick someone, and then we can answer their questions. Make it relevant. Ask the question around currently around the problem statement that we are seeing here, or around the submission of that and things like that.
Yeah, yes, sir. So we already have raised hands. We'll start with Bhavya.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
Go ahead, Bhavya.
For the trend lines, you specified that we have to use timestamps as parameters. Trend line, the timestamp with the values for numeric trend lines. So, sir, how would we? Is this graded or is it an optional functionality? Because you said trend lines were added for experimentation purposes.
So if you can look into, right, like it'll be graded, but it's not required. It's not a must.
Okay, sir. And sir, I had another question about the multiple choice trackers. So say a user has a preferred music genre tracker and a mood tracker. So the mood tracker will obviously be able to use the comma separated values, happy, sad, and all. But the music tracker will not have any of those parameters. So
Like,
how
for
do we?
example,
The
what do you
music
want
tracker would have something like pop, say classic, rock, something like that. None of
you
these
can
would
give?
classify
Yeah.
under happy, sad, and all.
No, it won't be. So in your settings, you would enter comma separated values of these genres, right? Like pop and things like that. So when you're setting up the tracker for the music thing, you will say tracker is music. Description is I'm talking the genre of the music, and then you will say the tracker type is multiple choices. In the settings, you will give comma separated values of these genres: pop, bhangra,
Okay, got
classic
it, sir.
rock.
So this is to be done via the settings. Got it.
Correct.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Pushpak.
Hi, good afternoon, sir. My question is related to graphs only. Like, we can have trend lines for numerical data type, but let's say we have multi-choice or the Boolean type for the tracker. So I cannot really think of using a trend line there. A bar graph would be more appropriate. So is there any restriction on the type of graph that we will have to use? Is it specifically that we need to use a trend line, or we can use bar graph or some scatter
You
plot as
can
well?
you can use any graphs you want. I think I've left a comment there saying use your creativity. So you can
All right.
use any of the things. It doesn't. Trendline is just a generic name that I gave, but you could use any kind of graphs you want. If you want to do like vertical bar graphs or stack graph or scatter plot, go ahead and do it.
All right. Thank you.
Lakshman, you might have to unmute yourself before you speak.
Yes, so am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, so my doubt was regarding using API. So usually when we create routes, like we do app.route and we access and manipulate database using plus SQL Alchemy. But since we are using API here, so I was wondering that we need to do this thing like first we'll write @app.route and manipulating and accessing of database would be done using by running APIs. So at that particular URL will run an endpoint and will get data, will manipulate and access database using API and will get the data in JSON format and will use this data in JSON format to render whatever we need to in front end. So what we need to do?
So here is the thing. I think doing with the APIs is not a must. It's like an optional, like in the slideshow you can see. We want you to develop a API to get the experience of developing an API. But as for the must use application part, you don't need to use an API. You can just code it like the way you would code with just the templates and controller and database. We should be able to develop the whole thing with respect to that. You have to develop the API. You can develop the API documentation separately and share it. That's for an additional thing, but you don't need to use that API in the application itself currently. So it's that is a separate task that you can do just to increase your experience with that.
So,
Yeah.
so we don't need to use API in the routes itself.
Correct.
Yes,
You can use
okay.
it generally, and
So
API
basically,
is
we need to create API endpoints separately, and we don't need to run them or use them like that.
correct. We don't need to use
Okay.
them. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Anita?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Sir, this is with regarding to the types of trackers. Should we have? Is there any number of restrictions to the type of trackers which we have to add?
Not really. I've given an example of 3, right? 3 or 4.
Yes.
You can at least do 2 or 3. But if you want to add more types of trackers, you are more than welcome to add.
Okay, sir. And
No,
my
at least
second.
do 2 or 3. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. And one more question, sir. The viva will be on the same day as the demonstration day, or that'll be communicated later?
No, the demo will happen on the same day as Viva. So I think they'll give you a structure anyway. It will be communicated to you how the Viva structure will be structured. Basically, you will probably do the first 3 or 4 minutes a demo, and then to the Viva person, and then he'll ask some questions related to the demo or the application. Then he'll have some more questions related to the course itself. That's how the Viva will be. It will be on the same day.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anirudh?
Hello. Am I audible?
Go ahead, Anirudh. Yes.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Anirudh. Go ahead and ask.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Anirudh, you're audible. You can start.
Sorry. I had a little glitch with my microphone. Good afternoon, sir. So my question is regarding the trend line graph. So it says trend line graph. So does it necessarily have to be a line, or we could use our imagination and we could develop different kind of graphs?
You can do different kinds of graph.
Okay, sir. And sir, secondly about the units, sir. So it's not necessary for us to put units in it. It could be different units, and in description we can mention it. Is it kilometers or anything? But sir, thank you, sir. That's all from us. Thank you.
Chaitanya?
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. My doubt is regarding users. So will our app be for one user only, or do we have to make separate databases for different users?
I mean, see, I would go ahead and ask you to design with different users in mind, but at least it should work for one user.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Natwani, Dia, Ajay? I'm guessing Ajay is the name, so. Do you want to ask a question, Ajay? Okay, Harish?
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. My question is regarding the modules we can use. Can we use Flask modules like Flask WTF or Bootstrap Flask modules for the front-end validation?
Go ahead and use it.
Okay. So one more thing, can we use themes from getbootstrap.com to make it look better?
Yeah, if make sure that the license is open and then you can use it. You can use things related to Bootstrap. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Naswani, Dia, can you speak now? Can you unmute yourself and try speaking?
Okay, in the meantime, there's a question in the chat by Ganesh P. Like edit tracker, if you allow the tracker to be edited, data type will change. How do we do, what do we do with the previous question? For example, edit the running tracker in the middle of the tracker. It's a good question, Ganesh. Maybe we shouldn't allow them to edit the tracker type. We can probably allow them to edit the name and the description.
Excuse me, sir.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sir. When is the last date to submit the video? Is it 18th March?
Yes, as far as I know, it is 18th March. Adarsh, will you be publishing all the detailed dates and timelines for everyone?
Yes, sir. So currently, currently the date is set to 18th March only.
Correct. Everything has to be submitted by 18th March.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So can I ask something?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, sir, do we need to deploy it, or like is it okay without deploying? Yeah, like deploying is optional.
Deploying to where?
Like if we deploy it on like probably Azure or something like that.
It's not required. You can show it from Replit, or you can directly show it from Replit. You don't need to deploy.
Okay.
It's not a need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anirudh?
Sir, I have a question regarding this tracker type. So you just mentioned that we should not make our tracker type editable.
Right.
Right. So we don't have to do it, huh? Right now?
Yeah.
If we are inputting a tracker, the type is prefixed with it.
If once you create it, it is frozen for the tracker. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So there is one question from Madhav Kumar previously. Should we save passwords for next time login so that it will be, it will validate with the wrong password or something else?
Yeah, I mean, see, at least the username you should have, and different users can use it. But username and password with authentication is an optional thing. If you want to go ahead and implement it, you're more than welcome to implement it, but it's not a necessity. And there's one more question by, should we store Boolean values as 0 or 1 in the database? Yeah, you can store as 0 and 1. There's a question by Danya. Should the datetime model gives UTC, should we convert it to local time? It's always a good idea to store it in the local time. Or if you want to store it, you can continue to store it in UTC. But when you show it to the end user, you have to convert to the end user's local time and show it. So in your case, I would say just use the local time. I would want at least more than one tracker type to be implemented, like at least the numerical one and multiple choice, the minimum. Not just one tracker type, right? More than one tracker type. Shweta has a question necessary to show the demo only on Replit. We would prefer you to run it on Replit and show. But if you want to run it on your local machine and show a screenshot, screen share, that should be fine too. Snehil Nair has a question, but not a combination of multiple choice and numerical, right? I mean, see, ideally, if you choose multiple choice and if the choices are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then it becomes numerical, but we will consider it as multiple choice. But the tracker type will be of multiple choice. Then the validation will be that, it's a drop down within those numerical types. If he has chosen, for example, let's say running type as a tracker and running as a tracker and chooses multiple choice and gives the choices as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then he can choose only between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He can't enter 10, for example. So that's the difference between those two options. Any other question? Okay, I don't see any other new questions. Okay, there's one
So
more.
just there is one follow-up thing to that. It cannot be a calorie count with type of exercise.
But not a combination of multiple. It cannot be a calorie count with the type exercise. Ideally, it shouldn't be, but we are not doing that kind of like high-level validation currently, right? If somebody enters it, we are not going to say, no, you're wrong, because I don't think we can determine deterministically. But yes, you are right. Calorie count will be a numerical one, and people can enter the calorie count.
Yes, Ganesh, go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. So if when we are implementing these APIs in our app, I was using the request library, and one confusion was like, for example, if I want to get a user's data, currently I'm using their email to authenticate. Let's say I want to get a log data, then currently I'm sending the email through. Based on the user's email, we are getting the logs. Let's say I want to do it using the username also, just as an example. That will also be a unique field in my table. Then in API, how would I implement it, sir? Do I create a separate class, or can I just do something with, let's say we are doing a get method. Can I just use alternate routes, or do I need to completely create a different class to handle this situation?
You can just use alternate routes in this case.
Could you explain, sir, how? Because once I put in get and let's say the endpoint is like API/user/ string type username.
You're talking about API, is it? Okay, then you'll need to do a different class.
Okay, sir.
Because in the API things, it will use only one get. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, so there is one question on chat. So if you're not using proper login framework, then how would it work for multiple users?
So that's the thing I was telling you. We don't need a password. If, like, for example, if there are 10 users in the database, for example, Tejesh 1, Tejesh 2, Tejesh 3, then we'll just ask the username Tejesh. If the user exists in the database, then we'll show welcome Tejesh or Tejesh 2, Tejesh 3. We are not asking here password here and not authenticating, because we're skipping that part. But that's it. If you want it to be properly authenticated and used, go ahead and implement the password validation part too.
But in this case, wouldn't all the users will have the same trackers and tracker logs?
Yeah, not really. No. If there is a tracker table has a user ID, and like the tracker table can contain their user ID, and it will become unique to them. No.
Acha. Okay. Take it. Thanks.
So basically, you should have a relation between user table and the tracker table, and there should be a relation between tracker table and the tracker log table. So when you want to get all the trackers for a user, you will get all for the tracker filtered by username. For example, if I write a query, it will be select star from trackers where username is equal to Tejas GN1, like that. Okay, cool. There are 3 more messages. Yes, you don't need to use the username based authentication. You can use email based authentication, and you can show the user name as a welcome Tejesh, where Tejesh is name, not username, and you can use email ID based login. Username could be email as well. Doesn't have to be the username itself. For Ganesh, that was the answer. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, Nair Sudesh Sonu, you can unmute yourself and ask.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Sir, should the user be allowed to should the user be allowed to enter his tracker, or like we can give like few trackers on like I'm giving the user only temperature and running tracker only? Or
No. You should the part of that requirement is the user should be able to create his own tracker.
Okay,
so
sir.
all the create, update, remove should be allowed, and he can create his own tracker.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so sir, there was one query on the discourse. Is it necessary to make a README file for our project? If yes, what must be written? Hello.
Sorry, I was on mute. I was talking. Anyway, okay. So yes, as part of the project requirement, we have asked for a 2-page report, which could be the README. We are calling it a 2-page report, which should tell you how to run the project, what the project is about, how to run the project, and like what are the models used, how are they connected, and there are some instructions in the slide that you can see that goes into that. So instead of a README file, we are calling it a 2-page report. As such, there is no restrictions on the, there's a question here by Pushpak, any restrictions on the main Python file name or the structure of a zip file, etc. No, we don't have any restrictions on that. On the code itself, we don't have any restrictions. But for the submission, we have a format to submit, like the zip file should contain the code and should contain the video and should contain the 2-page report, and then zip it up and submit. I think that others will share it with you. And the code itself should be at least should be able to run out of a replit and be demoed. Those are the restrictions. As such, how do you structure your code? How do you name your Python files or template files? All of them are not, there are no restrictions on that.
So can I have like a structure where I have 3 different folders, one for the report, one for the video, and one for all my app related files? And
I think
then
right. Adarsh will, I think, show you the structure, share you the structure of the zip file that needs to be submitted in like much more detail. Maybe we can add a slide, Adarsh. To be just to be clear for everyone, I think Naman, right, or Pushpak, so that we'll just add a slide to the same slideshow, so that you are sure about how to structure it and submit. Basically, I think it will be like one folder which contains all your folder, and parallel to that folder will be a report, and parallel to that will be a video. That's it. Then Harish, yeah, thank you. Harish has a question. How to request API through controllers and receive responses from API back to the controller. Like I said before, API is a separate thing. It will be evaluated separately and it's an optional thing. Whole of the application, you can just code it with the templates and the controllers. You don't need to use the API. API development is a separate task item. That is an optional task item, but will be great. So you don't need to call basically APIs. It's a separate thing that will be graded separately. Doesn't have to, the specific app doesn't need to use the API. There's a question by Shweta, sir. It says the API part is graded, but it's still okay or not okay to do it. Since I'm having some difficulty in implementing it. So it is graded as optional, like, but it's not a must. So, but it will be graded if. So, but it's not like a minimum required. Minimum required is the app with controllers, templates, and the Flask part. API is an additional separate task.
Sir, so it's not required that I have to connect my API, right, sir?
No, you don't need to connect the app to the API. It's a separate thing. Yeah.
So it can be implemented like how it was done in lab assignment 6, where your screencast where you taught us how to.
You can if you want to, and you can do that. But I was trying to keep it simple and separate. So if some folks who don't get enough time or don't want to do it, like they get stuck, at least they can implement the application first independently and cleanly, and then go ahead to implement the API separately as an additional thing. So that's why we have kept it separate, so that in case if you have like a shortage of time or if you get stuck, at least you should be able to complete the application part of it. That's why we kept it separate. But if you want to really go ahead and combine them and use Ajax and to call all of that, you can do it. We're not going to stop. Pushpak, no, it won't. Like, what are the after effects if someone doesn't comply with the minimum requirement? Say someone doesn't allow the user to specify his own tracker. Will this lead to rejection of the project? No, we don't reject the project as a whole itself. There are many sections within the even within the requirements. There are many parts, right? Like there is a CRUD for the tracker, there's a CRUD for the log, there's a dashboard screen, there is a first page, all of that. All of that will be evaluated separately and marks will be allocated according to that. So the if there is a marks allocated to creating the tracker, that marks won't be given to you, right? So it's split, and various sections of your project will be evaluated by when they are doing the demo and the viva. So if you're not done parts of it, you will not receive the marks for that part. But as such, your whole project won't be rejected, because you didn't do one part.
So one follow-up question. So then what is the difference between the recommended APIs part, graded part, and the minimum requirement part?
Minimum recommended optional, graded optional is for the bonus marks. I think Adarsh can give you the details of how the marks is structured and how it's given. Minimum required is actual marks. Like let's say if you have 100 and bonus is 10, you might get up to 110. The optional is for that 10. And 100 is where you actually all the minimum required is done. If you're not done, you're going to lose the marks within the minimum required.
Okay.
But if you don't do the optional, you're probably not going to lose the marks, but you're not going to get the bonus marks.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Madhav, what should we expect to ask in the viva? Can it be outset from the project? Yes. The first thing, of course, will be around the project itself. It can include the questions about how you implemented certain feature, or to ask you to show certain parts of the code and make you do something, make you do some smaller changes and show. For example, they might show me where you have implemented the CRUD of a specific thing, and they might ask like a specific question around that. That is with respect to the project. And outside the project, yes, they can ask within the course, or whatever the syllabus that we have covered. They might, for example, ask you a question about an HTML. They might ask you, what is, what would you use if you are writing in an SQL Alchemy? What would you use this part for? Or they might ask you a question about HTML. Anything with the syllabus also. There are two parts to that Viva. If you see my slideshow, so in that there's a clear instruction saying there will be two parts. First will be the demo and the questions related to demo and the project. Second one, anything that is related to the whole course. Any other question? Is CSS optional? Not really. You need to do some styling, something to make it look good, right? So CSS is not really an optional, but the level of CSS is optional, right? You want to make it fully beautiful, or use minimal look and feel to make it look good is up to you, and up to your creativity. But as such, CSS is not like you have to structure. You have to use some decent fonts. You have to use some decent structure. All that makes it you to use CSS, right? So yeah.
Yes, sir. So there are two more questions in the chat.
I mean, you can use the Flash bootstrap. We are not going to, stop you from using it. What was the other question? Nidish Kumar, can we use Flask Bootstrap? Yes, you can use Flask Bootstrap. Sneha is asking if you go for the API part, then only we have to do no YAML file. No, not just YAML file, like YAML documentation, but also the implementation of those APIs. Yes, I think it's mentioned clearly in the slides. I don't remember. Is Bootstrap included in the bonus mark? I don't remember clearly, but it's mentioned in the slides. You can check it. Alice, do you remember?
Sir, about the bootstrap, is it?
Correct. Bootstrap is
no,
part
so
of.
This is bootstrap and styling. We are including in the optional part, just
Yeah.
so that's something that is not graded or recommended. But yes, as you suggested, a minimal involvement of CSS is something that will give more clarity in the application.
Correct. So the next question is, sir, if we have not done APIs but have implemented various additional things, so are we still eligible for bonus marks? I think this whole bonus marks, how it is given, I think there are 3 or 4 things as part of bonus marks. I think yes, you might be eligible for bonus marks if you've done other things too. Ideally, I think it's sir, its API documentation is required. I've just designed and implemented the API. Is it okay? No, I think you should include the API documentation because it's a big part of writing the API, right? So API documentation is required if you are implementing the API. Others, can you just add that line to the slide that when you write API documentation is required?
Yeah, sure, sir. I'll add.
When is the Viva scheduled? I think the dates will be shared by Adarsh and team, and you can follow up with them. Similarly, what's the max bonus? That mark structure will also be shared. I think Adarsh, you can share that mark structure and what's the bonus part and what's the other part, right? We can share that, maybe on Discourse or through some other medium.
Yes, sir. That
Currently, I don't.
documentation is still under observation. So we're still in the discussion. Once it is finalized, we'll put it on Discourse and also in the documents of what the students see.
Correct. So Madhav and Nidish, keep an eye on the Discourse. I think you will get to know. Sneha, yes. Sneha's question is, with respect to logging the tracker, we are supposed to write those into a table rather than a separate files, I assume. Yes. Like at least there would be 3 tables. One is a user table, and then there is a tracker table, and then the tracker events table. Logging of the tracker will go to tracker events table.
Okay. Any other doubts regarding the statement?
Yes, it will. There's a question, like a follow-up question, contain the tracker logs of all the trackers. Yes. In terms of relation, they use tracker table will have a username, so it belongs to a user, and tracker event table will have a tracker ID foreign key, which will belong to a tracker table. So yes, for all the trackers in the same table, but they might have a different tracker ID corresponding to which tracker the value is being logged. What happens if the 2 users make the same tracker? I mean, nothing should happen ideally, because the tracker table will have a user ID foreign key, right? So they will see only their tracker. So for example, Nidish can have a tracker. In the tracker table, there will be user ID of that in Nidish, and the tracker name is temperature. And if there's another user called Tejesh, my user ID, let's say, is ID 2. So then there'll be another tracker, same thing with temperature with user ID as 2. So the combination will be unique, right? The combination of username and tracker will be unique. So we'll close it in another 5 minutes. I think the number of questions have reduced. So go ahead and ask any other questions if you folks have. That should be fine, correct, Adarsh?
Yes, sir. I will. Yeah. So if by any chance you're unable to unmute yourself, you can ask your question through chat, and we'll try to answer.
question by Sachin, outside of the scope of the project and course as well. What does it mean? Like, are you thinking like the viva questions outside the scope of project and outside the scope of course? May not happen because all the folks who are going to do viva, like the interviewers, will know what the syllabus is, and they'll probably stick to that part. But that said, there could be like some queries, but usually they stick to the syllabus, that we pre-share them with the syllabus and the project details. There's one more question. What do we need to do in wireframe documentation? I didn't understand what do we need to do in wireframe documentation?
So Meg, this wireframe is what we have given is something for your reference. You don't have to create one and document it. You can create your own wireframe just to give a preliminary idea of what your application should look like and what things it will have. But you don't need to submit any you don't need to document it anywhere and submit to us. Wireframe is not required.
Correct. Snehal is asking, only when a user makes another tracker with the same name and type as an existing tracker, do we run into a problem that we have to account for, right? Yes, you have to do some validation at that point and tell the user that this tracker already exists. Do you do you want to create a different tracker, some kind of validation? How should be the report be the project report? I think Adesh will probably can share you the headlines so that you can get an idea of what all need to be filled in those things. Basically, it will have what is this project about, how you'll start and run this project, and what are the models used, how are they connected, things like that. But others can share you like that, like a template structure of the report, 2-page report. But we also give you an option to write some text description. That's up to you to write.
Sir, can I ask a question?
Yeah, Harish, yes, you can go ahead.
Yeah, just one final clarification regarding the API. So let's say I've created the API document and have it check the endpoints in like api.py in the project, like how we did in the screencast, and not have it interact with the controllers. Is that fine? Is that good enough for the?
Yeah, that's what we expect you to do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, your report shouldn't contain any code. It's just text and about the project. It shouldn't have any code. That's why it's a 2-pager, right? We don't want any long report. You can look at the NOMI and see how they've done. If you want to contribute, go ahead and contribute to it. It's a good project. Selena is saying, so just the basic running and model of the app. I don't know what is the model meaning here, but yes, a running app, like a running app is required. Pardon, sir, are we expected to do the APIs? It's not like I said, it's graded and optional, but it's not a must. But you can go through the slides and like it's clearly mentioned what is minimum expected, what is additional, what you can go beyond that. So I think I would ask everyone to go through the slides that's shared by others in detail again. I think some of these questions are also answered there. And if you have questions beyond that, and beyond today's session, you can ask in the discourse, and one of us will answer those things. So I think we can close. Okay, this will be the last one. So someone asked that they did the API and you responded, that is what was expected, but I couldn't hear. Basically,
Probably
they
it was
asked.
Harish's question.
Correct. The question was actually they had done the API, but they've not integrated with the main application, and API remains separately as a separate thing. I said if you are going to do that much is more than enough. You don't need to integrate with the main app. Okay. That's it actually. If you have any further questions, like I told you, you can reach out to any of us on the discourse. Yeah, there's one last question I'll just answer. Sir, is the report have to be submitted on the portal or should be presented in Viva? I think it needs to be pre-submitted. The report, the video, and the code as of like a structured zip file has to be pre-submitted on the 18th. That was Madhav's question. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. I think we can end here. Adarsh, I think if there are any more questions, you can ask in the discourse and we can answer there.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Adarsh. Bye.
Thanks. Yeah, so just before sir was there, I saw Prabit raising your hand. Prabit, you want to ask anything?
I think some of them have left already, so it is better that question is asked on the discourse and we can answer there. So it's so people who just left the chat won't miss it. Okay.
Okay, fine, sir. No issues. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot for joining, sir. Thank you for this session. Okay, so for so if there are any other doubts, you can ping us on discourse. So as sir suggested, it would be better if you go through that document once again, the question statement. Okay, I guess a lot of things will be more clear this way, right? And if there are still things or problems that sustain, you can simply ping us on discourse. We'll try to answer. Yeah. So if you are stuck somewhere, and if it is not really something that is giving you clear idea, we'll try to give you some hints. Okay, so that can also be done on discourse. Okay, so I guess we can stop it here. Thank you everyone for joining. Yeah, so everything required and operational, which is given to you, which is given to you as a part of document, will be given on discourse and also on the portal wherever required. Okay, so we'll be giving you proper announcements as and when things are open. Okay, thank you everyone.